Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're gonna do a little bit of tech tip, kind of my opinion on some certain hard parts. We're gonna try and go over some of the stuff that's in the engine. I get a lot of these questions and hopefully some of you guys find this helpful. We'll cover a little bit of the piston stuff, definitely some connecting rod stuff. And yeah, hopefully you guys learn a little bit. This is just my opinion on stuff. So if you have other people that are telling you something different and that's where you buy your parts from, or that's who builds your motors, then by all means, there are many ways to skin a cat. This is just my experience after, I don't know, at least probably 4 or 5 years doing this. So hopefully you guys enjoy it, but I know you guys love shop update videos. We have this 12 valve NV4500 swapped truck. It actually came back. It's pops out a fifth when you drive it. So we're gonna go ahead, this was not a transmission that we built, we just installed it. So we're gonna go ahead, pop the drive shaft out, pull the transfer case off, and see if that fifth gear nut has walked itself off. Dave's truck, we're still working on tuning and stuff with that, but it actually does run and drive, do a burnout. As I'll show you guys right now. Not bad. We have this gorgeous 7.3 here. This is Dave's favorite truck. He talks about it all the time. It has an intermittent crank no start. So Dave's gonna handle this one. And then the current situation, the DDP truck, is the motor's out, as you guys saw. There's a couple things I want to change as far as mounting and stuff. I don't know if I ever showed you guys really up close and personal here, but these are actually supports in the intercooler, and it swelled so bad it tore holes in it. So I haven't decided if I want to try and clamp this back in the press and re-weld it to try and save it, or just throw in the towel and be done with it. But anyway, guys, that's kind of what's going on in the shop. I got this. This was just machine work for a customer, and then we also have this 5.9. I'll try to do a video on. I have to clean it, obviously, so just sitting there soaking in WD-40 so it doesn't rust. But I will try to do this. This is like a 700-800 horsepower 5.9, and this block went to Steve to get cam bushings. It actually ate the cam. And for those of you guys that are curious, the factory cam actually is 100% reusable. Generally, when they eat into the block like that, usually the cam's fine. It's just the block. So Steve got us taking care of that. But anyway, let's go inside the engine area. I'm going to show you guys some things. And kind of, some of it'll be like pictures of old stuff, but kind of cover the piston stuff, and then definitely the connecting rods as well. Okay, so what I have before you guys is an assortment of connecting rods. These are going to be your 12 valve, 24 valve VP style rod. I have taken a couple early 03s that also have these. These are a forged rod, 12 valve rod is what a lot of people, they have, I think it's Brazil, England, Mexico, USA, and Great Britain. I'm not 100% sure, but there you go. Then moving on, we have a common rail rod. These are a powdered metal PMR rod with a fractured cap. On these 12 valve ones, they're machined flat like so, whereas these, basically they are created one piece and then they break them. So honestly, for a factory rod, as far as fretting goes, these do have quite a bit more surface area. However, structurally, these are a lot weaker. So what you'll commonly see on your common rails is guys will talk about breaking a rod. That's very common because the material itself is not as strong, whereas a lot more guys in the 12 valve rod will bend them kind of like this. So I always say that you kind of get like a chance to realize you're screwed up. So that's kind of the gist there. Sorry, I had to pause, so I kind of lost my train of thought. But either way, that's why these rods definitely break far more whereas these rods tend to bend, as you guys can see here. As far as bushings go, they're about the same. They both have like a K-style bushing here. They both utilize a factory rod bolt. Both can be upgraded. ARP and Hazley both make a rod bolt. The Hazley ones I feel like are a little bit better, but they do go in factory. I always recommend you check clearance on the bearing crush. However, every time I have checked, I've never ran into any issues with it smushing the bearing. Now, moving over to our billet rods, we have this D&J X-beam rod. Just obviously by the nature, it's an X-beam. This is from UCC 2021. My souvenir, I guess you could say. We have our Waggler. This is our deck plate rod. And then we have what I like to call your budget rod here. And I want to talk about all these rods. So I've always said, and I will continue to say, Waggler and D&J I feel like make the best connecting rod on the market today. The reason why I say that, it's very clear if you guys look. So one thing I have kind of noticed is D&J will key this part and then makes the recession here. Waggler went opposite, the recession's in the cap, the key is in the rod. And then over here, this is a Carrillo rod, but honestly, Carrillo, those new boost line rods, some Apex rods, those are really the only ones that I'm familiar with and I've had and personally ran. They use like a doweling system here. Now, over time, they have gotten bigger dowels and stuff like that, which is fine, but the problem with these is it's not locked straight across. So you have a lot of room for this to rock back and forth. Like if here's the cap, it does have a tendency to rock back and forth like so, like that. And what you'll see is a lot of chattering and fretting right here on the edges. On these D&J rods and these Waggler rods, because the keyway goes all the way across and they're angled like that, it's very hard for these caps to move. One thing that Drew does that's different than any other manufacturer that I'm aware of is he actually drills all the way through to lubricate the oil pin. So basically oil gets pushed through the main journal into the rod journal, from the rod journal gets pushed into the pin. Now, it is a very cool design, and I am sure he's had his reasons over the years for doing it, and I'm not knocking him, but I haven't seen a reason yet to do this. Now, the hole that he has drilled here is a lot bigger. The bearing, when he does it, like the restrictions built into the bearing, but I personally have never had an issue with any pins getting stuck, except for when the piston melts like this. But anyway, whereas Waggler does not do that. There is no oil hole here. And then the other thing you'll notice too, with these Carrillos and stuff, is there's no oil hole at the top that the Wagglers have. D&J has it. The factory common rail does not. The 12 valve does. It's kind of interesting to see everyone's kind of opinions on it, and you go back and forth. And I even have some standard length Wagglers right here. These are a set that had a piston come apart on them, so you guys can see here all the damage. But this is their standard length rod. And again, I've never seen anybody have any issues with the Waggler or D&J. Both of them I feel like make a really good rod. I believe they're both made in America. I know for sure that they are finished machined in America. That is without a doubt. I'm not sure what alloys and stuff like that, but they both make a really good rod. The reason why I like the Wagglers is they're a little bit lighter, and I haven't ever hurt one of these. And that's kind of where we get into a lot of things, is rotating mass, or throw off weight as they like to call it. Basically how much weight is trying to come up and off the crankshaft as it's spinning. It's referred to as throw off weight. And you know, I've ran Waggler long before I ever messed with Drew's rods, and loyalty to me is very important. So we love the Wagler rods. Austin takes really good care of us over there. Jeremy loves giving back to the industry. I've met Drew, ran his Enforcer motor. I have nothing but good things to say about D&J as a company. They make a great product. This is my own doing, so do not think anything less of D&J. This was definitely a tuning issue through and through. So anyway, we run the Waglers, and there's another reason why I feel like D&J and Wagler both kick butt. So this is a D&J bolt, ARP, and if you guys look there, L19, this is a 1/2-inch bolt. And if you come over here to the Wagler, again, 1/2-inch rod bolt. I wouldn't be surprised if they're not both using the exact same design. It looks like Drew's has a little bit more thread engagement, a little bit longer. I'd have to actually check to see if it's fully engaged or not, but either way, they both use a ARP L19 1/2-inch fastener. And then you go over here to your Carrillo. Carrillo runs a 3/8 bolt, and you guys can see here it actually says Carrillo on it. I believe ARP makes these private label. This is a 7/16 rod bolt. So I feel like you're giving up a lot. Actually, no, these are 3/8, and then they offer a 7/16. So I personally feel like you're giving up an awful lot of clamp load with these. Now I believe these are their car bolts, which are probably pretty close to a L19. I do know that I want to say Wagler offers a 625 upgrade, and I'm pretty sure Apex also offers a 625 upgrade. But I just feel like if you're not running a 1/2-inch rod bolt, you're losing clamp load. Combine that with the bad doweling system, you are guaranteed to have some issues. And I've also seen where the Carrillo bolts have stretched. One of Todd's engines had a set of Carrillos in it, stretched the rod bolts. So all in all, the L19 1/2-inch fastener, I feel like both Wagler, D&J use it. I believe that they make the best rods, and I think that's one of the key takeaways there is they understand that clamp load's really important. And yeah, I know obviously Wagler helps us out on our race program, and I'm always going to be a little bit more biased towards Wagler rods just because I've been with them forever. But I would be lying if I said Drew also did not make a killer rod in this market. So I just want to give him the credit of making a pretty badass rod in today's world. Moving on, you guys will see the different designs, right? So this is called the Carrillo H-beam right here. What these are famous for is the bushing failures. So what'll happen is it'll actually sandwich the bushing down. Now, these are the different style bushings, so these shouldn't have the issue, but I'm not sold on it. But anyway, you'll know it's a Carrillo rod when you go to push the pin out, and basically there's bushing smashed out of here. It'll kind of actually look like this, where you can kind of see the bushing starting to get beat out of the rod. And then Carrillo, to try and fix that, they changed the bushing. They've also added this relief, which on an FEA must have been a way to compensate for some of that getting pushed down. When you look at them head on, as far as construction type, they're all very similar. I can't get this one unstuck, but you guys can kind of look there. They're all in the ballpark of diameter and strength there. And they just have different designs. So Wagler went with the solid beam here. And then they have this recess here. I think this recess also helps on Wagler to relieve some of that. I wish I still had the PDD computer program, but you can actually see all this on the FEA, which is the failure analysis software that a lot of these companies use. And Drew also has a relief going on here. One of the things that you'll also notice on all these rods, and some people might not understand this, is this machining here. You'll see it on the Carrillo, you'll see it on the Wagler, you'll see it on the D&J. You even see a little bit of it on the factory rod, and this 12 valve rod would also have it. And the reason why they do that is oil evacuation. This is what allows the oil to get out of the bearing, and they machine it like this so that way it can sneak through the crankshaft. I don't have a crank here, but it does get pretty tight. I mean, you measure this with feeler gauges. I don't remember off the top of my head what the spec is, but it's very tight. For the longest time, it was an option on Carrillo, or you had to do it yourself. They have now upgraded to actually machining this for oil evacuation. As far as I'm aware, Wagler and D&J have always done that straight out of the box. So I do think there's something to be said there. And you guys can kind of see the different type of cap designs here. Definitely the tallest one is the Carrillo. Carrillo also has the most meat here. I will not speak to the different thicknesses there, but it looks like the two top of the lines are very similar in cap height here, if you guys look there. And yeah, these Carrillos, again, if I have a customer that's got like 1,000, 1,200 horsepower build, you know, I'll run them if they want them. I really try to avoid these rods. I don't like the crappy rod bolts. I don't like their bushings. I don't like their design on the cap here. And just for reference, this is the Carrillo, this is the D&J, and this is the Wagler. You guys see here how D&J and Wagler have a very similar design. I believe, I don't know what Wagler calls this, but I think Drew calls this the diamond lock or something like that. And one thing that's really cool is if you look at both of them, they are not symmetrical. So if you do end up dropping the cap and you freak out, blah, 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 you try to put it on, it won't only go on one way, just like that. And I always like how D&J and Wagler, they both they're very hard to get the cap back on. So like when you have to fight the cap to go back on like that, to get them to snap in, versus the Carrillo that, I mean, once you run them, both of those rods have been ran and they still snap in. The Carrillo kind of just falls into place here. Like, I mean, seriously. And then you go to break it off. Like, see how much that can rock? We'll do it fair. Okay, right here. See how that's rocking already? And like, you're moving the whole Wagler rod, and the Carrillo rod you can just do by hand. And then you come over here to Drew's rod, and again, very hard to move. So it's kind of interesting how everyone has designed it. But basically, bottom line, 1/2-inch rod bolt. Now, getting into the Street Fighters, that is Wagler's budget line. They're $18.50 retail. They have a L19 1/2-inch rod bolt. Like, that's the only option. They use a really good bushing. And you'll hear a lot of guys that say they'll put a Wagler or a Molly bushing in a Carrillo. That's how they kind of fix it. I know there's some bigger engine manufacturers in the performance line that still use Carrillos, but they change the bushings out. When you're changing a bushing out of a brand new rod to put somebody else's bushing in, like, that should be your first telltale sign that maybe something's not right. But, you know, I know Industrial loves these Carrillos, and maybe they figured out something I haven't, but every time I put a set of Carrillos in, beat the bushings out of it, fretted the rod. And those Street Fighters, man, I tell you what, they hit a home run. I feel like Boost Line came out of nowhere and made a really, really strong claim to say the strongest connecting rod. And they're made overseas. I don't believe it. That's why I said, if you come to me, I'm going to sell you a set of Waglers, or I'm going to sell you a set of D&Js. That's really the bottom line. If you want Carrillos, knock yourself out. But I personally do not like running the Carrillos, and hopefully you guys can kind of understand the why behind it now. And this isn't a stab at anybody's rod. I think Drew is the most expensive on the market. I believe his are over $3,000 now. Wagler, I think, is getting pretty close. Their deck plates might be like over $3,000. These Carrillos are like $2,400. So it's not like Carrillo's trying to sell you a $3,000 rod that's only worth $2,400. There is a price difference between all these rods. But the Boost Line rods, you know, I think they're selling for $1,850. Again, 1,000, 1,200 horsepower, sure. And if they watch this video and they want to send me a set, I am happy to put 3 of their rods or 1 of their rods and kind of mix match it and put a bunch of rods in there and see which one gives out first. But statistically speaking, looking at it from a engine builder perspective, I definitely think the 1/2-inch rod bolt, that's a given. Like you just got to do it. You know, guys are spinning these things 5, 6, 6,500 RPM. That rod bolt needs to be there, and the doweling needs to be sufficient. And that's where I think both of these rods really shine. Anyway, now you guys kind of understand at least some of the differences on your stock rods. People will call these crack cap rods, PMR rods, powdered metal rods. You'll hear these referred to as factory billet, forged rod, whatever the case may be. These ones, you know, for all intensive purposes, probably are stronger than these. However, what you guys can't see on the camera, because I don't have a scale, but trust me, these rods are actually heavier than these, which does actually help in this favor a little bit here. And then when you get into pistons, just a couple things I want to cover, guys. This is going to be your late Common Rail 5.9 spray pattern. This is just what I had laying around. If you guys look here, I always get this question: should I use J-jets, saddle jets? And to be clear, a saddle jet sits inside the block. It's actually fed from the main bearing journal, and they're usually plastic. I think Attitude Performance makes billet ones, but you pound them into the crank journal and it sprays up. And then J-jet is the one that bolts on the opposite side of the block from the cam, and it has this little hook, i.e. J-jet, which they kind of look, I think I have some right here. So these are gonna be your J-jet right here. Obviously this one's a pretty beat up one. And then they are fed by a banjo bolt, such as this. And basically, if your piston, oh goodness, focus here. Hold on, let's hit her with a little liquid cancer. All right, see those holes there? That is to allow oil to get in there and cool the inside pocket right here. Versus your early saddle jet style motors, this will be completely solid. There'll be no oil holes here. And basically what happens is the J-jet, if you look, this notch here, this is where the J-jet comes up and then shoots in here. And if you look, if you ever spin an engine over and you look underneath, obviously with the oil pan off, you'll see that it lines up right here. The oil goes through this cavity, and there's actually, I used to have some really cool pistons where it like blew in half. There's a hollow pocket inside this piston, and then it drains out this side, versus your regular J-jets do not do that. And that is one of many reasons why a common rail can have much higher sustained EGTs than a 12 valve, early 24 valve, because of the oil cooling that happens inside the piston. And in closing, guys, hopefully you enjoyed this video. Again, I don't want to sit here and just belittle Carrillo. I just try to bring up the valid points of why I don't think their rod is as good as others. And there are other manufacturers that use a very similar design, like I said. Apex. Now Apex does beef up this, where they used to have an H-beam and now it's a triple beam. However, I have threaded those in a 12 valve. Again, same issue with the doweling here. You have those boost line rods. Again, they're trying to be competitive. They made a really bold claim. With the bolt that they chose, the design that they chose, if they sent me a set, I'm happy to try it, but no thank you. I'm gonna stick to the American companies that have put in the R&D and make a really good quality product. So in closing, guys, hopefully you like this video. If you have any suggestions for other episodes that you'd like me to cover, kind of like how the channel has been at times, we're really just kind of waiting on parts. I got so much shop work, but I wanted to keep getting you guys that content that you like. Drop it down below. If you have any further questions about connecting rods, drop it in the comment down below. I'm happy to help you guys out. Most of you have found me on Instagram at just the Common Rail 24V, or on Facebook as Josh McCormack. It's a picture of me and my boy. Ask your questions there. And yeah, hopefully you like this video. Drop the comment suggestion down below. Subscribe if you are not already. And as always, guys, I'll catch y'all on the next one.